Today we're going to be looking at toxic relationships. I think we've looked at this topic before in the last few weeks, but today we want to specifically look at young people. And I think the definition will always stay the same. What is toxic relationship, irrespective of where it's being, discussed. But it's by definition, it's one that makes you feel unsupported, misunderstood, demeaned, or attacked. And also, there could be other adjectives that describe a toxic relationship as well. There's just a few ones that we picked. And just on a basic level, any relationship that makes you feel worse rather than better can become toxic over time. And as I mentioned, toxic also relationship can exist in just about any context, from the playground to the boardroom to bedroom. And this means affecting young people, work colleagues, partners. Any relationship that you come into has a potential to have toxicity in it. So next one. So this just shows the topic that we want to focus on today, which is toxic relationship and the impact it has on our young people. And I think we had a discussion earlier with Ravina today. But when you talk about young people, how old are we talking? And she was like, the definition of youth is between 15 to 24. Again, please challenge me on that, or let's discuss what we're talking about, young people. But on here, it just gives you a representative of some of the adjectives you'd find in a toxic relationship. I mean, here we've got a male and a female, and just to say that, so the male has manipulative, intimidating, emotionally and physically abusive, and dishonest. The female has ashamed, disrespected, ignored, dependent. And this, you could flip it either way. So both of them could feel these adjectives that relate to toxic relationship, be it your gender or, without stereotyping anybody, it can be felt by any person, and any person can be the toxic, any person can experience toxic relationship. On the next picture, we've got, of course, maybe a separation, and you can see the pool that's on the picture when maybe the parents are going their separate ways. And it just makes maybe the young child feel like being pulled on different sides. And you wonder what the impact would be in that relationship. So of course, young people and getting support, there's quite a lot of support around, and I've just listed some of them here. So you've got the NHS, of course, and you've got the 999 service if in immediate, life-threatening situations. You've got the NHS online services, you've got the talking therapies, and I'm sure James is here, he's gonna give us a word or two about it. You've also got different organizations, and this I got from the Children's Society. You've got Shout, which is a 24/7 text service from all mobile networks, and it helps people in crisis. We've got the Good Samaritans, who you can call or email. We've also got the Child Line, which is a free and private confidential service which you can access online, and they help people up to the age of 19. We also have the Hope Line, again, a confidential service support for young children and people under 35. Especially this one is for people who have thoughts of suicide, or people who think that the young people are in great danger of suicide. We also have other societies as well. This is just to name a few. I think you've both seen Chuk, who comes on, and they run a crisis center as well. So this is just to name a few, but it just shows there's a lot of services out there that would want to help. So these are some statistics that have been got from, I believe, from the US, but it just comes about to say that 27% of women and 11% of men have experienced unwanted sexual contact. 9.4 teens reported being abused by their significant other in the last 12 months. And you can appreciate, especially with the COVID pandemic, it hasn't helped with people being cooped up in their house. But the main reason and the main why we keep doing this workshop is to create awareness and make people feel you're not alone and there's help. And you can seek help from the different organizations, but you can also seek help from your immediate community and support group. So thank you everybody who's just joined. Normally what we do is we go through a series of poll questions to help us to discuss our topic of today. I just want to reiterate that everybody's opinion is valued, and we are here to learn from each other, and just make sure that you feel free and safe. We have James on the call, who's our CBT therapist. If anything triggers you on the call, please do not hesitate to send him a message in the chat, or please send me a message in the chat and let me know, and then James can pick up with you. And we're always here to help and to learn from each other. So I'll hand over to Rabina, who is going to share the polls and also give us a live example of what has recently happened in our community, I believe in the last year or so, Rabina, just to bring it into light on what we would like to discuss today.
Hi everyone, hope you guys can hear me. So I want to talk about, do you want to put your, give me a second guys. Thank you. So I want to talk about Ollie, and Ollie was a young boy who had got stabbed in Caversham last year, if you guys remember this, if you guys live in Reading. So Ollie actually got stabbed in Caversham after he had an argument with his girlfriend, and his girlfriend had posted on Snapchat, can anybody basically kill or stab my boyfriend and I'll pay you. And what happened was the girl actually got two boys and they both had a knife and they stabbed Ollie, and then Ollie sadly passed away. And the girl had got sentenced for 2 years and 2 months, and the two boys had got 12 years sentence. So that was my story on Ollie. And now I'm going to launch the polls. Can you guys see the polls? No. Oh yeah, we got them now. Okay, so the first question is, how common is toxic relationship in young people? Very common, common, not very common, not sure. Second question, how much does toxic relationship impact young people's well-being? Very much, not sure. And then the last question is, hold on, let me scroll down, is how well can you help young people manage toxic relationship? Very well, not very well. So we'll just give you a few minutes to answer your questions. Okay, I'm just going to end the polls now. Thank you. Yeah. So the first question is, how common is toxic relationship in young people? Very common, with 63% of you said, 25% of you said common, and 13% of you said not very common. Does anybody want to explain what the thoughts are on this? On how common is toxic relationship in young people?
So,
Chloe?
So from my experience, it is really common, and probably a lot more common than people think, because there are so many contributing factors. So many young children don't know how to maintain or manage their feelings or emotions about things. They put into practice a lot of what they see if they got like unhealed or toxic parents. And then like the whole example you gave was the story you gave. So my youngest is the same age as those children that you were talking about, and also knew some of them. And obviously, you know, the lengths that the young girl went to even say to him what kind of footwear to wear so that he wouldn't even be able to run away. just goes to show that so much more goes on in young people's minds than what anyone can care to imagine.
Very true, very true. But yeah, toxic relationship for common people is very tough. Chloe, you had your hand up.
Hi. Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think for me, I was wondering if like a relationship can have toxic traits and not entirely be a toxic relationship, or like one of the partners could have certain toxic traits. Would that make the whole relationship toxic, or like how do you define whether it's just some traits or the whole relationship is toxic? Because I think often like it could be someone's mum and like their relationship will be unhealthy in lots of ways because of the way that their mum is, but it wouldn't be a toxic relationship. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's actually a good point, Chloe. I think Eva would want to comment on this.
Yeah, thank you for that, Chloe. I thought actually that's a very good point that you raised, and I'm gonna take it over to James, who's our therapist. James, do you want to react to that question?
Yes, I think what Chloe is actually trying to suggest is about how sometimes we forget the fact that young people can also relate to themselves. How are they relating to themselves? So to begin with, we need to understand. And I think there are principles there to really bear in mind. One of them, do they feel lovable? Do they feel good enough? Do they feel likable? So that can also make them begin to develop hesitation to get involved, to be involved, and they avoid a lot. So that's where it started. And Chloe was really talking about sometimes relationship can begin to be problematic without actually becoming toxic. And the toxic level is really where it begins to impact not just the young person, but the family as well. You know, so it's really about how the impact is. And for all of us here is to begin to look at how is it impacting on the young person. For example, the story that Ravina actually shared with us, and thank you, Ravina, that's very courageous to share stories like that, because something that happened maybe in isolation, but how much was that relationship toxic? Who knew about it? What was going on? So that's really what perhaps is also important to bear in mind. So coming to Chloe's point, it's really about trying to assess, understand the young person and allow them to understand you as well, and don't hesitate to discuss issues. If there's anything you're doubtful of, talk about it. Don't hide it. Don't say, oh, I'm going to wait until there's an opportunity. It will be ever late. So toxicity can start by something very minor, but it's really about trying to notify yourself that, hang on, we need to talk about this. And just opening up, listening can really help.
Yeah, I agree. I think by having these conversations and becoming aware and being able to recognize traits that could like progress and get worse means that maybe you could communicate that something might be beginning to be toxic and actually prevent it. Because I think it happens all the time, even in friendships and with colleagues and with like people and their own parents. And I think by raising the issue and talking about it, you might be able to prevent it from getting worse.
Yeah, thank you for that, Chloe and James. So the second question was, how much does toxic relationship impact young people's well-being? 75% of you said very much, 13% of you said not much, and 13% of you said not sure. It'll be interesting to see what you guys say on this.
I put very much because I'm surprised. Well, I don't know if I'm surprised, but I think it's concerning the amount of friends that my son has, and he's only just turned 15, but this has been going on since he was about 13, probably. How many friends he has that talk about harming themselves, and those that actually go to the lengths to actually do it, and some of the things that they confide in him, in him. So like, you know, there's a lot of situations where I've had to really think hard about what I can do to help the young person without creating any more toxic situations for them and making life more difficult. And actually, you know, it's not even just him. All of my sons have had experiences where they've had friends who come to them with like really serious situations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Natasha. Does it, yes. Does anybody else want to speak on this? Okay.
Yeah, can I say something?
Yes, Mary.
Yeah, I did put not very much because these kids, they like the younger ones, actually I do volunteer in the community center. It's just like a cycle. That's what they know, that it's okay to hurt somebody, you know. And then also ask the parents, we support, like when my child fights somebody else, instead of finding the facts, you just straight away defending your child, which is really not helpful at all. And like the case of Oli, actually, sadly, I met Oli before he died. He's a friend of my friend daughter. They had a birthday party, we were all invited, and he was there, a lovely little boy. And when they're outside, they really fight, a real fight that they can hurt each other. But the parents don't see that. So you have to work with these kids to know what they're really up to. But then the next minute, they will just come together and like nothing happened, you know? Like an incident happened, we were looking after them in holidays. You know, we have a holiday group here in Amersham Road. So they already had a fight, a big fight, and then the parents involved and all this. When they came to the activities, they're like friends again. But then the parents came to pick them up and they're like fighting outside. The parents are fighting now, you know, and inside they already, you know, they're okay. But they are telling, don't tell your parents that we are talking. So they're also playing up the parents. So it's not really that good. The communities, I don't know how to put it. It's not a good situation at the moment. You know, people don't care if you hurt somebody. It's okay. You go to jail and all this. It seems like it's a trend that it's okay to go to jail, but you hurt somebody's child. So I'll pass it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mary. That was very powerful. Yeah, I just want to reiterate on that. What was I going to say? I forgot what I was going to say now. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing that, Mary. I just thought, are we then talking about also boundaries? Is that people we're pushing the boundaries too much, you know? Even what Nyasha said is you know, the kids are, I don't know, I think maybe in this youth they're more experimental in a sense, and people are not thinking about the repercussions that much. Yeah, but it's worrying. I mean, as you said, and is it learned behavior? Would you say maybe not all of it, but could learned behavior be contributing towards it? People are emulating what they're seeing, and then actually laughing. Maybe not.
No, sorry, I'm just processing everything that was going on, and then my son just peeped his head around the corner. Yeah, no. So if it's okay to just intervene, I was just thinking, it is kind of a trend, and that it's not like there aren't any consequences, but people, so from what I know, like, yeah, they know they can go to prison, but it's all right if they do a little bit of time, it's fine. People who know people inside there will look after them. So there's not really any. So whilst obviously going to prison isn't a good thing, from their perspective, nothing bad is actually happening. But that's because also nobody tells the truth about the emotional impact of these things. Everybody just looks at, well, I'll just be behind bars a few days, I'll get 3 square meals a day and people are going to look after me. I'll pick up some new tricks or whatever while I'm in there, and then they come back out and adapt their lifestyle to be not for us better, but in a better way for them, where they can get away with more things for like a lot longer. Like, and maybe if the criminal system was a bit more restorative, the emotional impacts and needs of the people would be picked up, and they naturally would not want to do anything more like that when they come back out. And, you know, as I've mentioned before, I grew up in care. A lot of the people I grew up around, prison became their life because it was easier to be inside than it was to be outside. Their parents didn't want to know them, or, you know, just little things like that. Prison was home.
Yeah, I hear you. I agree. It's the sentencing is, you know, there's much more other reasons that cause it, you know. Yeah, but it's good for us to have these discussions and to have, as you said, the emotional toll. It's, yeah, you'll come out, but after a few years maybe of doing that, it's like, okay, speak to somebody who's done this for like, you know, 20 years. What would there have been reaction to, you know, the first thing they did? Maybe they would say, you know, I wish I didn't, because it takes an emotional toll on them, you know, and it's all about well-being and the mental health of people at the end of the day, you know. So yeah, thanks for that. Chloe, I see. Oh, Nasha, sorry, did I cut you off or?
Yeah, so I was just going to say, you would think that as well, but my son had someone from prison come to their school the other day, and my son was repeating back the story that the man gave him, and me and my other son were picking up loopholes in his story. So he's still kind of, it was almost as if he didn't have any heart in what he was doing. He was just coming to do the talk as part of his release thing. So he weren't really being honest about everything that was being done. So he still kind of idolized the money and the material things that he had, rather than teaching them a lesson about why they shouldn't go after that stuff.
Yeah.
And one more thing I just wanted to have quickly, sorry, is that if you're being brought up by unhealed adults, because obviously we're looking at the children and then we're looking at the adults, we want the adults to behave better, but if we can't assume that they know better just because they're adults. If they haven't been taught better, they're doing what they think is best.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Prior trauma is something else. As you said, if you're being brought up by somebody who's not healed, then, you know, they can't pass that down to you, you know. So yeah, thank you for that. Chloe, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I did just kind of want to extend on what Nasha said about maybe like prison seems like a comfortable and an easy option if they don't feel like they fit in, and often it's maybe not feeling like you fit in and that like violence is the only option and gaining street cred is the only like worth that you have, is that people are intimidated by you. Like I can imagine that the more and more you feed into that, the more you want to do it and the more you give in to violence and things like that. And prison by that point probably doesn't seem very scary, and probably for some people seems like maybe more of a positive option. And yeah, also I think that if you have unhealed people that are raising you and they're projecting all of their issues onto you and dealing with it in really unhealthy ways, that's obviously what you're going to learn. Which is why I think it's so important that everyone should go to therapy. I think if everyone went to therapy, then it wouldn't be like this. If we were learning how to cope with our like anger and aggression in different ways. But yeah, that's what I have to say.
Yeah, thanks for that, Chloe. Yeah, I think
Eva, sorry if I just come in
questions.
to really buttress what you know people have already said, including what Chloe said. This is something I got from young people sometimes back in our own community. One of them was, I don't fit in. And I think Chloe mentioned that. And when we talk about inclusivity, it's not really between race, it's also in relationship. How does somebody feel that you are a friend? What does that mean to that person, that you are my mom, you are my dad, you are my friend, you are my brother, you are my, all of that's what takes to be you. That's being understood by the other person, or are you just the one that is gatekeeping? Because people gatekeep us. They need us when they need us. It's like you have a toolbox. If you need me to open a door, you come and get me out and then put me back there. So I'm not really validated. So, and some people were also saying, young people say, I fundamentally am different from other people, James. And I really felt for them, to feel that way. But you live in this relationship, but you feel completely different. And somebody also was saying, I don't belong here, because I'm a loner. Even when I go to school, nobody really check out, teachers to come in and teach, but they don't really understand me. The only time perhaps I'm valuable if I answer questions. The other times when I'm in trouble, and these are the times that they really pick on me. So that's the reason why perhaps that need for these young people to be validated through media is very high, because they have all these messages coming to them. I mean, they think somebody is valuing them, even through messages. So that's really something that we all need to understand. And I think, Chloe, yes, it's good to go to therapy, but it's also important to understand who you are. Where do you stand in your own life? Who is nurturing you? And that's what we really feel for young people. And finally, a young person also told me that I feel that I'm always outside the group. How does it mean to be in the group? So let's look at our own groups that we belong to. Where are you in that group? Are you in the middle? Are you the outsider? Are you part of it? Are you leading, or are you being led? So it's really important. And for that young girl to lead two boys to go and stab somebody, what was it for them? Was it done because they don't have any space in life? Was it anger? Where was that anger coming from? Because violence is normally there's 50% chances that anger is involved, and they also look at drugs, but anger must be a factor. So where is the anger coming from? Are they young people feeling that they are alienated? They are not part, they are not inclusive. So that's really a very important topic.
Thank you for that, James. And I think something you alluded in is fitting in. Where do you fit in? Who can you identify with? And I think that's something everybody struggles with. And I think especially young people growing up is a big challenge. And I think it's even when you go to a new workplace, you still have to find your niche. Where do you fit in your circle and different groups? So yes, thank you for that, James. I see Nyasha has a reaction to that.
Yeah, so just to touch a bit more on what James was saying about in the schools as well, sometimes even answering the questions don't give you the validation that you think that you're looking for. I mean, my experience of working in the schools is obviously the children who conform the way the school want them to, they're the ones who get picked for everything, and some of their misguided behaviour choices are either ignored or unseen, and those who are openly making what we consider to be the wrong choices, even when they do try to conform, they're the ones, they're not picked for the parts in the plays, they're not, and that has a negative impact. You're just reinforcing, obviously, that they're not good enough for those things. And even if they do the right thing, they still don't get what you're saying that they deserve. And also to answer the bit about like why these young people did it, because my son knew some of them, it was to get a place in the community. So those children who are naturally angry or and fight because they think it's the right thing to do because they're brought up in that environment, you're finding children now from well-to-do areas that have the two parents and are brought up well and all of that, they're doing what they do because they want the attention and credibility that other people are getting, even though in the end, a lot of the time, the people who do live like that end up trying to get out of it in their adult lives. So I don't think they really understand what they're getting into, because in that moment, all they want is the credibility. So whilst a lot of teenagers are angry with them at the moment, when they come out, they might still very well get the recognition that they were looking for in that moment, because they might be accepted in the community now because, oh yeah, you're bad, you did this, you've been to prison, yeah. And then it starts all over again.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that, Nyasha. It's just all fitting in and trying it, whether be it right or wrong, you know. Yeah, this tells me about maybe, and I think James might answer this later, about how long it takes people to mature, you know. And maturity also, as you said, is not a virtue of your age, you know. So does it have something to play in it? But we'll look at that. I'll pass back to Ravina to do the third question.
Thank you, Eva. So the last question was, how well can you help young people manage toxic relationship? So 50% of you said well, and 50% of you said not very well, which is very interesting. If anybody wants to speak. So for me, I would say well and not very well. The reason why I said well is because I feel like a lot of people would want the help, and not very well, half of the people would not want the help either. So it's like whether you want to listen or whether you really want the help. Now, Ayesha, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I agree with that as well, but I think there's also like a grey line, because it's also about understanding, like, and like, so I'm really open with my children, but sometimes, especially like for my youngest at the moment, the response I get is, well, I'm older, I'm a mum, how would I know that, like, but so they don't get that everything that they're going through, we've already been through, and it's like the same fight but different people every time. Like, nothing really changes. It's just the people that are going through it, and they don't get that, and it can be really hard to, because I think sometimes even with people understand, it's very much like, well, that's not going to happen to me. Well, I'm not like that, because, well, I don't know why. I guess some people feel like they're prepared for these things, they're educated enough, they understand enough to make sure it doesn't happen to them. But then sometimes, before you know it, you're in a situation that you don't want to be in, that you don't like. Yeah, I just think it's the very fine line between not understanding as well as sometimes not listening, and then also wanting the help and not knowing
Where to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true. Does anybody else want to speak on this conversation about the last question?
Yeah, can I say something?
Yes, Mary, go ahead.
Yes, I would say, yes, you have to find the good in these young people, you know. All of us in this world, we have good in us, but it's the people has to find it, you know. The environment is toxic, it's everywhere, toxic, killing, shooting. It's just, it's a big problem for these young ones. But I was watching a true story of this rapper called Snoop Dogg. He actually grew up in toxic home and all this, but he want to do good, he want to be good. But the people surround him really will not let him. But until his girlfriend or wife got pregnant, and he said, okay, I'm gonna have a child, so I really have to change. But that cost him so much, because his friend been shot, killed around him. And one of the friend was Jada, Will Smith's wife. She was also involved, but she did manage to get out. But as I said, people die for them to be out, you know. Now they're helping young ones not to take the same route. But the reason is as well, is the fear. The fear, that's why they are fighting back. It's not that they're really strong. They're not strong, these young people, you know. They're just afraid. If I don't hurt somebody, somebody's gonna hurt me. So if we try and help these people, that no, you don't have to hurt people to be strong, you know. And yeah, And the same thing with 50 Cent. I was long time ago when my son was young, he was listening to his music. The music was terrible, you know, encouraging young one to kill and shoot and stab somebody. Again, when his girlfriend got pregnant, he gave up, you know, all this fight. He also been shot so many times on the legs and all these places. But in process, you already, like my son, got this bad behavior and other people already been killed because of your behavior. Now you're coming out, you want to be good after like so many children follow you. It's just, I think from the young age, we need to try and find the good in our young people. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that. That was very powerful. Yeah, I totally agree. Like, especially because I'm a young person as well. So I agree what you were saying, Maria. So I think that is it on the polls. Eva, back to you.
Thank you for that, Ravina. Thank you for that, Ravina, and for taking us through the polls. And yeah, just on Mary's last point about how Snoop Dogg and the music, and people just used to follow and think this is the way they're doing their lives. But now you look at them and it's different. And it's just also, I think, the pop culture or the music industry. Some people sing about some things, but they don't actually do them in their life. But so many people follow it, and it's and as Nyasha was saying, trying to make them understand that this is just cycles of what's going, it's just different people around you. It's hard to explain, but hopefully we get some tools and tips on how to help our young people to make them more aware about how they can deal with this relationship when they get into that, and to know that there are people they can talk to. And I think Nyasha alluded to that in saying you also don't want to push them away, but you want to say, I'm here, and I think we're going to look at that. I can see Chukwu, you got your, Emeka, sorry, you got your hand.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, listening to this topic about toxic relationship, and especially with young people from the polls, what I've come to realize in life is, as a young person, I just feel it's about you are kind of figuring out who you are. It takes a long time for some people. Because the way I look at it is all based on the relationships you hang out with defines the kind of person you are. And that's why it takes a lot of courage to leave certain friendships. Because the way I look at it, even as you get older, you are still figuring things out. It doesn't stop when you are younger, especially with the friendships you hang out with. Like those rappers, like she mentioned, obviously, like young people following them, they didn't really, they saw them as role models in terms of, trying to be tough, living the gangster lifestyle. But as you get older, probably when you are like in your 30s and 40s, you are kind of like evolving as a person and you're figuring things out and you grow. Like for them, those rappers, they had kids early and they got to realize that I need to become a better person for my child. Because for some people, it takes one little thing they do in their lives. Like, for instance, if they got into trouble with the law and they spend time in prison, they come to realize that, you know what, I need to really mature and grow. This life is not really for me. For some people, like I mentioned, it takes having kids or something to make you realize that, you know what, I need to become a better person for my child. So that's where I look at it. It's all based on your character as a person and what you see deemed fit that will make you grow up as a person. That's why, like I said before, what I'm learning in life now, like the people you associate yourself with defines the kind of person you are. Because there's that old saying, show me your friend and I'll tell you the kind of person you are as a person. And that's what I'm learning now. It takes a lot of courage to realize that, you know what, I can't hang around this person anymore. He's not helping me grow as a person, and especially if you have goals and ambitions in life. That's where I look at it. It's all based on yourself as a person, your character. Especially as a young person, it's all about, some people are fortunate to have found a positive role model to advise them. to guide them through, while some are not. Because the ones that are not fortunate, they make mistakes in their lives, and as they get older, or it could be like I mentioned before, one particular thing that makes them see the light and realize that, you know what, I can do better. I can't be hanging around this person anymore, or I cannot be living this lifestyle anymore. So basically, like I said before, in summary, the person you are, it's all based on your character and who you choose to mingle with in your life. That helps you to really see the bigger picture.
Thank you for that, Emeka. Yes, it's important who we hang around with. For young people, as they keep developing, we have to keep teaching them. Thank you for that. So I think we're just going to watch a short clip. Just going to try and share, and then we'll come back and have a small discussion. And I think Emeka will come in soon after, but I'll let him know. Okay, so let me share this. Can you see my screen?
Toxic relationships can be found in either family relationships, friendships, and toxic romantic partners. Do you suspect you might be in a toxic relationship right now? Or perhaps someone you know is in one? If so, we made this video to help you recognize the toxic effects of bad relationships. If you're currently in a toxic relationship or know someone who is, you consider sharing this video to help raise awareness. Now let's get into the video. 1. Toxic relationships make you more guarded. Life lessons, be it good or bad, help us learn something. In this case, your experiences with toxic relationships may make you warier and more suspicious of others. You're afraid that getting close to people will open you up to hurt, so you guard your feelings with a wall. Ironically, you might end up getting hurt because you find it hard to trust anyone. 2. Toxic relationships breed negativity. How happy do you feel in your relationship? It's hard to be happy when you're in a toxic relationship, feeling like there's a dark rain cloud following you wherever you go. You're constantly feeling down or in a bad mood because negative emotions can be contagious and may rub off on you. 3. Toxic relationships make you more pessimistic. If only we could employ out of sight, out of mind toxicity. Too bad we can't. Toxic relationships can alter your views in life, even after they've ended. You used to be optimistic and joyful, but now you've become anxious, fearful, and cynical. This makes you more distant from those around you. 4. Toxic relationships emotionally exhaust you. You feel like you climbed a mountain, but all you did was spend time with someone? Emotional drainage happens in toxic relationships because so much time and energy is spent catering to the other person at your expense. You feel anxious and stressed out whenever you spend time with this person because they might be narcissistic, overly critical of you, or they make everything all about them. Just being in the same room with them is exhausting. 5. Toxic relationships destroy your self-esteem. Our relationships with others and the way they treat us provides an important foundation for our self-image. So when you're in a toxic relationship with someone who doesn't care about you, it's hard not to feel bad about yourself. You're constantly denied the love, support, and reassurance you deserve. You lose confidence, stop believing in yourself, and struggle to feel a sense of self-worth when you're in a toxic relationship. 6. Toxic relationships hinder your personal growth. You have a hard time answering questions like, who are you as a person? And this is because you may not have a concrete sense of yourself. And when one person constantly tries to control and dominate you, they wear you down until you figure you're not worthy of getting what you want. And this makes you believe that you need them and are nothing without them. So you never think or form anything for yourself. 7. Toxic relationships distort your idea of a healthy relationship. One of the most damaging effects of a toxic relationship is convincing you that you deserve it. Being mistreated and taken advantage of by someone you cared so much about distorts your idea of what a relationship should be like. This results in you seeking similarly harmful and dysfunctional relationships. Over time, this harmful setting is normalized, and you find it hard to recognize when a happy, healthy relationship comes along. And 8. Toxic relationships negatively affect your entire health. Are you getting sick more often? Do headaches occur more often? These are physical signs of toxic relationships. Studies show that given the stress and anxiety experienced, Toxic relationships often result in a greater risk of serious health factors such as weakened immune system, higher blood pressure, and even heart problems. There are also common reports of low energy and fatigue. Sometimes, even when we recognize the signs, we simply feel too emotionally invested to leave the toxic relationship. However, the toll on you for staying is very steep and may cause long-lasting scars. Do you see any of these effects on yourself or others? Are you working on undoing the damage of any of these? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Psych.
Any reactions to the video? What you thought?
It was very informative and full of good advice. Yeah, based on my own experiences, then yeah, it was good.
Yeah, thank you. I even thought as well it gave, signs of what to look out for. And I think that's one of the things we need to talk about today. How then, and I think Chloe alluded to this when she was asking the question in the beginning, but how do you actually tell it's, a toxic relationship, But I think it's when these things happen over time and, it's constant there. And yes, Chloe, I can send that to you. I can send you the link. I'll put them in the chat for you. But I think also it's when you have a combination of all these things that then make possibly you think, okay, this is a toxic relationship. Because sometimes also you can just have a fallout with somebody. It doesn't have to be toxic. It could be, just a disagreement. I agree to disagree in a sense. But it doesn't lead to. But it's how it makes you feel overall, and all the different things, like making you feel like you're growing, like you're being controlled, like you're, feeling down about yourself, you're doubting yourself. So I think that's when you think, this is starting to affect me and it's becoming a toxic relationship. Okay, that's fine. I just wanted us to also watch just one other clip about supporting young people as well. If nobody else has a comment on that one, we can go straight into the other one. No, okay, that's fine. I'll just share the other clip. Can you see my screen? Okay.
Hi, I'm CJ, and I want to tell you why it's vital that you get it right first time when supporting all young people experiencing abusive relationships. Not all young people are the same, and you need to recognize their differences. Don't generalize. Everyone deserves to be heard. Here are some things to think about. Minority groups may not feel they are being understood. Make sure you earn their trust. Beware of specific issues relating to same-sex relationships and gender identity. They may not identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender. Make an effort to find out about religious and cultural practices. It may be influencing their experience. Don't assume that all victims are weak. Don't assume that all victims are female. They could be involved in criminal activities or gang violence. Don't forget the needs of disabled victims. They may not have a voice and may be dependent on their abuser. And families and communities can be abusive. Make sure you know who the safe people are in a young person's life to create a network of support. Not all young people are the same. Just listen to them, get to know them, and you will be able to give them the best help.
Okay, thank you. And I think that message comes out very clear in terms of let's learn to appreciate people's differences and also listen and try to know the person as a holistic so that you know how to help them. And I like also what they said about creating a network of, people that young people can go to. That's what I got from that. But yeah, any reactions to that particular video? Sorry, apologies.
I don't know, just like overall as well, I think when we're listening, it's really important to make sure we try to pick up on the little things. Because I done an interview with someone recently and we were talking about narcissistic relationships, and she gave me the saying, it's like a death by a million paper cuts. And I thought that was really, really relevant. And I watched a film in relation to the interview from my show as a whole, and just analysed it from the very, very beginning to like what would be considered really, really small things. And this is why sometimes it's hard for people to get help, because they're explaining a problem that seems really, really small, and actually it's all of those little things that's where it starts from. And the more little things they get away with, the more it's able to grow, and that's how it becomes a big situation. So yeah, everything is relevant.
Everything surely is relevant. And yeah, listening and just listening out for those things, and you think, wow, yeah, that's a really big statement, but it carries a lot of weight, you know, when somebody says that, and it's like, wow, yeah. And understanding them, and also helping you maybe to a bit more broader. Again, they have to trust you for them to share what's going on. Yeah, thank you for that, Asha. Anybody else who would like to say, comment on anything before I bring Emeka, and then we're going to have James giving us the word for the day. Oh, yes, Ravina. I'm just going to read.
Okay. No, I just wanted to say, like, for toxic relationship on youth people as well, a lot of people, you can get unexplained injuries. So like, for example, like if you get bruises and stuff and parents are wondering why you're getting them, like they might feel like youth might feel like embarrassed to tell their parents and may not tell the truth and lie about it. And also like the way you dress as well, like some men or women would like how you should dress and control your life and like social media and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, you have to watch out for all these things. Yeah. It's that controlling behavior that, you know, like it's what other people want and not what you want. And yeah, and also as I said, with injuries, be patient to ask what's going on. Thank you for that, Ravina. Okay, just before I bring in James to give us the word, we've got Emeka with us who would like to share about the campaign he's running about cancer. So he'll come in for a few minutes and tell us more about it and how to volunteer for them as well. Emeka, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Eva. Yeah, hello everybody. My name is, as you know, my name is Mr. Chukwuemeka Obiora. I work under Rushmore Healthy Living, which is a charity organization.
Emeka, your video's off.
My video. All right. Hello, can you see me now?
Yes.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, my name is Mr. Chukwuemeka Obiora. I work for Rushmore Healthy Living. We tackles with helping disadvantaged people with disadvantaged people and improving their quality of life. So improving their quality of well-being, health, and everything. And I'm involved in the Macmillan Cancer Education Project that is involved in addressing cancer, that is involved in cancer outcomes, in addressing health inequalities, and also again issues that affect the community, issues that are among seldom groups that are unheard of in the communities. And also again, like I mentioned before, addressing health inequalities among seldom groups, and also again trying to, in order to that don't have access to cancer, that don't have access to cancer outcomes in the health services. This involves working in South Reading and West Berkshire, and apart from that, again working with local health professionals, and also again in the grassroots communities and other organizations and also again in the NHS and local councils. It is founded by BOB ICS, which is the Buckinghamshire, Oxfordshire, and Berkshire West Integrated Care System. It was formerly BWCCG, so it has been changed to BOB ICS. At the moment, this project focuses on promoting educating the communities about cancer, and it involves trying to get volunteers to be part of the project to become cancer champions. So if you're really interested, you can send me your details. Send me your details on the in the chat box, or I can put my email address in the chat box, so you can send me your email address if you're really interested in becoming if you're interested in being a volunteer to become a cancer champion. This really an important project in addressing health inequalities, and also again amongst seldom groups, like I mentioned, and also again tackling issues that affect cancer and having access to health services. So if you're interested, send your details on the chat box.
Thank you for that, Emeka. I just wanted to know, to be a volunteer, how many hours would it take for people to do, and would they have training if they join as volunteers? And yeah, just 2 questions so we can have a bit more information.
They will definitely have training, because hopefully, so I forgot to mention, me and Nisha Sharma, we are working together on the project, and they will have training by August, September. At the moment, they haven't yet come up with a time yet, but at the moment we are just promoting the project to get as many volunteers as possible to be part of the project, and also get to train to become cancer champions. The referral form at the moment, they are yet to implement it. They are still looking through it.
Thank you for that, Emeka. Yeah, you can send your details in the chat or send me directly to me if you're interested in getting more information. Thank you for letting us know about that, Emeka, and thanks for the worthy cause. We always want to make our communities better, and I usually say the communities are there to heal themselves. So yeah, thank you for the wonderful work that you're doing, and thank you for your presentation. So James, shall I bring you to give us the word for today?
Yes, Eva. Yes, good afternoon, everybody. I think it's been a very productive and very engaged discussion or conversation. And I think it's really important for all of us here to engage in difficult conversation, because that's where perhaps all of these things can be resolved. And I've got 2 concepts upon which I'm going to build my takeaway from today. Some young people might think they don't have anybody to nurture them. They don't have somebody to really care deeply about what they actually stand for, what happened to them. So let's just reflect on that as parents, or even as young people. If you don't, we need to understand why not. And if you as a parent not being able to be there to nurture your child, we also want to encourage you to start doing that. And the second bit among some of the concepts I have developed is young people say, there's no person to give me sound advice. I'm not talking about advice, sound advice. And I think this is something that we all mentioned today, even in the clips that we listened to. Sound advice can actually help somebody to prevent problems. So when people don't have that, and also in addition to sound advice, they were also talking about direction. So if we don't give direction to kids from the home, where do you think they're going to get direction and advice from? Media, the street, idols, people who sing, and artists, and all of those people, they give them messages that perhaps they want, but it's not needed sometimes, you know. And the school environment, I think we've mentioned that it's not too conducive sometimes, because the focus is so different. The focus can be more on your behavior that is causing them problem. If your behavior is not causing them problem, they don't grow it, they don't nurture it, because they are not bothered. You know, I would like schools to be really looking at behaviors in young people that is helpful to develop it, to grow it, to make it big so that those kids can feel validated. But when they ignore good behavior and then escalate bad behavior, it becomes difficult for young people to feel belong. And that's really what this is about. So what I've done really for all of us really is looking at this RISE, R-I-S-E. Just imagine, when last did you really rise up to your own relationship as an adult or as a young person? Meaning rise up to the relationship tree, having all of those things that we have talked about: listening, nurturing, encouraging, adapting, embracing, and all of those things. So within that context, I've come up with recreational needs. I'm not saying when we talk about compatibility, it's not that you're going to measure beat to beat, step to step. No, compatibility, as far as I'm concerned, is how much more do we embrace each other. We may not like the same menu in the restaurants, but we can go to the same restaurants. I can have a different food, you can have a different food. But the fact is, we are together, we are eating together, we are chatting. That's, for me, is compatibility. And we look at the recreational aspect of it. How many times do you exercise together? How many times do you leisure together? How many times do you go on holidays together? How many times is the relationship really meaningful? Practically, things that you do, activities together. So that's recreational intimacy or compatibility or closeness, if you like. The second bit is the intellectual closeness or compatibility or intimacy. And I think we have heard from a lot of people today that even just sitting down and reflecting on a video or on something you watch or on a history or a news with your children, that is really helping them to develop intellectually. How many times do we really challenge our young people in terms of what is happening around all of us? Most of us, perhaps, from who are maybe first generation immigrant, maybe kids myself, daddy or mommy, you don't know what my teachers are teaching me, and I'm not coming to you for advice. But how many times have we educated them on other things that they don't know? Maybe things that we learn, things that we know, you know. So that's recreational intimacy or intellectual intimacy is really important also. And when we look at spirituality, there's a divide. And I think in the clip we're talking about religion as well. But here it's really about, what does your child stand for? What do they really rise up to every day and say, I believe in this? Maybe I'm somebody who believes in the environment. I believe in equality. I believe in justice. I believe in discipline. You know, how many times do we listen to them to understand what do they stand for? So that's spirituality, really, because it can really help with their well-being. So it can be religion. It can also be anything, because what they stand for could be a spiritual. It could be just that discipline to stand up for something. I believe in something. You know, it doesn't mean, it doesn't have to be God. It could be anything. But even the religious aspect is also important, because that can also help a lot of kids to grow morally. And if finally, with this rise, is the emotional intimacy or compatibility. How many times do we really understand that our kids are either sad, they are happy, and what does it mean to us? How do we get into that mindset? So sometimes it's really important to just measure up to those things. And also, you able to share your own emotion with your child can also develop them, you know, in terms of expressing it and not holding it back when it's difficult, because we have emotions that are positive and probably we like to share them. Sometimes we don't, but emotions that are negative can be very challenging. For example, sadness, low mood, anger, distress, and frustration. Most people tend to avoid them, you know. But when you avoid it, you're not actually dealing with it. You are actually just suppressing it, because sometimes in your life it's going to pop up, and can be sometimes violence can also disturb you as well. It could be self-inflicted violence. It's not just about other people, it could be yourself, you know. when I have sat with young people who have self-harm, that's why they've told me that, James, I'm just trying to release tension. Where is that tension coming from? So it's really coming from some of these things. And earlier on, I think Eva wanted to understand, when does maturity occur really in our life? I think it's there all the time. And there's a study to suggest that maybe women or girls kind of can be more mature compared to boys. And I think it's true. You can dispute that and check the evidence for yourself, but you can also check in your own family and see how your girls compare to a boy. If you have boys and girls, see how they're being developing, what is the maturity rate and the height of it as well. And there was also a lot of study during the COVID period, particularly during the peak of the lockdown. They were talking about how young girls, the age of 13 going to up to 16 or 15, no, 16 up to 17, were actually struggling with emotional issues. They were either, particularly girls, they were more bombarded by their friends rather than by parents, you know. So they would either go to their friends and tell them about how they were struggling. And that really did put a lot of pressure on girls within that age bracket. And boys were also affected, but differently, because they have a very different approach to emotions. So they rather bottled it up. Girls spoke about it, expressed it, but to their friends. And they did put a lot of pressure on those friends that they contacted during COVID. So that was where they also got their own mental health issues. And so self-harm would have increased during that period. And also a lot of distress and low mood would have also increased during that period for that particular age bracket. So it's really about how we measure up to some of these things. So really my tip today really is about, let's provide that nurturing environment to our young people. Nurturing in the sense that we can rise up to the relationship at any time, recreationally, intellectually. It's not about academic work. It's about learning, understanding life. How do you relate to this? Can really help. Debate, have conversation around topics, you know, choose a topic and talk about it. For example, food, for example, sports, for example, geography, all of those things. At least it's not going to be every day, but talk about something that you really value. And also that spirituality as well. It's also important to measure, when did you actually fall off the relationship tree, and be bold and courageous to understand that, oh, today I'm really feeling a bit low. It looked like I have not done what you wanted me to do, and engage with it, talk about it, don't push it away. And when you're having conversation with young people, it's leveling up, isn't it? I mean, there's transactional analysis where there's a parent, there's a child, but sometimes let's be at equal footing. And sometimes it's even important to check with your young one. How do you like me to advise you? What advice can I give to you? Maybe they will be able to direct you. So for me, really, the take home is for us to provide that nurturing environment. Also provide an environment that is able to give sound advice and direction, because that's where some of the issues are missed. And that's where young people will go out in the street looking for the advice that perhaps would have been provided at home. And that's the reason why young people go out looking for nurturing, which would have been provided at home. So let's really look at that. But above all, how do you nurture yourself? So let's really look at that this week. So I would like somebody to tell me next week when we meet, how did you nurture yourself this week? And what did you do so that people can learn from you? So on that note, I would really like to say thank you all. It's been a wonderful, wonderful time once again, you know, and I'm really glad to be with this Zoom every week. Thank you, and we'll see you again next week.
Thank you very much, and nurture yourselves and let us know what you do next week. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.